And then for now, it's like, all right, my man Richie, take two.
Take two. Hopefully we'll need another one.
Yeah, I don't think we'll need another one. So thank you for coming in, and you came down to North Carolina, did a wrestling camp at our club, and now you're sitting down with me. I'm excited to hear your story, your message, everything like that. So thanks for coming in. I appreciate you.
No problem, man. I'm excited to do it.
Yeah, so for everyone who doesn't know, give us a little background on yourself.
So my name is Richie Lewis. I'm from New Jersey. Went to Rutgers, Iowa Central Junior College. I'm a U23 world champion. I just took fourth this weekend at the World Team Trials, so I'm not quite where I want to be. I got a great story, and I'm excited to share it with you guys.
That makes two of us, and I hope there are more listeners too. I'm excited to hear about it. So tell us a little bit about growing up. How did you get into wrestling, things like that?
So growing up, man, my father was a basketball coach for a parochial school, Catholic school. They were pretty good, you know, always top 20 in the state, always competing in the city of South Amboy. So growing up, I loved basketball, you know. I loved football. I played lacrosse, all different sports. Once I got to the age of about 10, 11, I was a little bit too physical for basketball. I had to be fouling people. A little bit too small for football, you know, a little bit too high-paced for baseball. So my football coach was like, we should get him out for the wrestling team. So my mom was a little scared, but I wanted to do it. I was ready to do any sport. So I tried out for the team in Edison, New Jersey. And we had one of the best teams in the state, you know, Scotty Winston, who top recruit, went to Rutgers, you know, I lived maybe 10 minutes from Rutgers. And I just loved it, man. As soon as I went, I got my butt kicked, but showing up every day to fight was extremely fun for me, even as a kid.
So right, you just caught on to it right when you were young. You loved the sport and just going to practice and everything.
Yeah, man. I mean, I was always, since I was a kid, not in a bad way, but I was always attracted to violence. I like to attack. I'm aggressive. So this was a way for me to channel that in a civilized way.
Yeah, I was always a scrappy little kid too, and so it was like
Angry little bastard.
Transition to wrestling was so easy. I played football as well,
Yeah.
and then I didn't really get good at wrestling until I quit football and just focused on that.
I was actually the nose guard, so I was the smallest kid on the field, and I was playing nose guard.
Yeah, I was a linebacker and a fullback,
Right.
and I was like, I played 75 so many years in a row that I had to go up every year because I was too old. My size didn't grow.
That's crazy. So for me, they kind of always knew that I was aggressive, so putting me in those positions was just like, don't matter the size, you know?
Yeah, get them as close to the ball as you can.
Exactly.
Nose guard, you can't get much closer than that. So then when did you like really kind of fall in love with the sport of wrestling? Like when did you start seeing the success and start like really kind of digging at it?
Man, I didn't really see success until I was probably in 7th grade. I placed 7th in the New Jersey State Tournament. I was always, like I said, I was always like real small. I wasn't really stronger than guys. I always had a great frame, but I wasn't, you know, that 7th grader who was stacked. I wasn't the kid who was going to the best club in the state, you know. It was humble beginnings. Me and my family, my dad my mom, my grandma, they drove me everywhere. Everywhere I needed to go, everywhere I needed to be, what they thought was the best. But, you know, reflecting back on it, we thought national tournament was the Mawas in Salisbury.
Yeah.
And these kids are going to Super 32s. These kids are going to Tulsa. These kids are going to schoolboy cadets. It's like
Tournament champions.
tournament champions.
Yeah.
My scope was not, in reality, it wasn't the real scope of wrestling. So I'm thinking I'm getting great competitions and, you know, maybe not even winning these competitions, not even placing at some, and thinking, wow, I'm getting better, I'm getting right there. But little did I know there was a way bigger scope to this sport. And I think once I found that is when I fell in love with it.
So you were kind of stuck in a fish tank, and then before you were in the fish tank, and then they put you in
the ocean.
In the ocean, and now you're like, wow, this is where the next level really is.
Correct, and I've always been able to rise to the occasion, and I've always been able to, in a good way and a bad way, compete to my competition. So, you know, if I'm wrestling someone who's a superstar, I'm able to beat those guys and compete with them in close matches. And once I seen the ocean, once I seen the shark, you know, I just grew. So it was a fun experience being able to get so much better so fast.
So then once you kind of started seeing that success, it led into high school. How did your high school kind of career go? And What did you
So
kind of learn through that process?
in high school, like I said, when I was younger, I was a little crazy. I was a little aggressive. I actually moved in with my aunt an hour away in Toms River, New Jersey, one of the best wrestling high schools in the country. Warren Reed was my coach. He's two-time All-American for Oklahoma. And I moved with my aunt, and things changed a lot, man. I went there just to wrestle, just because it was a good school. I got out of Edison, which was not a terrible area, but it's not a place that I wanted to go to high school. My parents wanted me to go to high school, and the people I was hanging out with, so they moved me down there, and that's kind of when things changed. I was only wrestling maybe 3-4 months out of the year. I didn't go to a club. I didn't really do much, and I didn't even qualify for the state tournament my freshman year. So I wasn't even discouraged. I didn't even really think about it, because at that point my scope was still very small. I still didn't know about these tournaments. I was like, okay, well, winning the state tournament was the biggest thing in my life. I thought if I won the state tournament, I'm gonna get a full scholarship. I didn't even know about high school rankings. I didn't know my education. My knowledge wasn't too high. So I just kept pushing for the next best thing and trying to learn as much as I can about myself. And that's how I really fell in love with it.
How was getting put into that position where you were with one of the top high schools in the nation? Like, how did that transition go from?
So competitively at the time, we weren't like a top high school nation, but we produced, Vinny Delafave, Frankie Edgar, Pat McGrath, Joe Mermile, these Division I All-Americans, and these Division I guys who are world champions in their respective sports. So being around a guy like Warren Reed and Brett Taylor, it's like, how can you not want to be successful? These guys are here pushing you every day. We're doing 3-hour practices, and at that point, you're so malleable. You're just doing what you're told.
Yeah.
So the more that I did what I was told, the more that I loved it, the more the opportunity and growth that I see.
Yeah, I can agree. I had kind of a similar situation where I went to high school. I wasn't supposed to go to wrestle.
Yep.
And then I ended up winning state as a freshman, but never again.
What state?
Virginia.
Virginia.
Yeah. Just it was a crazy. Everything got easy after that.
Yep.
Didn't have to go to class much. My grades were all smooth. Extensions, girls.
See, for me, it was like that, but it was more because they really wanted to see me succeed, and I'm very lucky that I had those people to serve me in my community at the school. It wasn't because I was just good. It was because a lot of my teachers in high school cared for me, and a lot of my teachers knew that I had something special inside me. So they just wanted me to get it, and I'm happy that now I don't got everything. You never will, but I'm
Progress.
Yeah.
1% better every day. So you went through your high school days, and then you shifted to college. And where did you decide to go from there?
So when I was in high school, when I was about 15, 16, I was doing silly stuff, hanging out with friends and drinking and whatever, and skipping class and just doing enough to get by. And like I said, I had these people that cared about me that really wanted me to succeed, so they kind of like didn't usher me through, but made sure I just did enough to get by.
Yeah.
So by the time I was 16, I was like, man, I love the life I'm living right now. I'm doing this wrestling and hanging out with my friends. So it's like, I'm gonna go to junior college. I'm not gonna go to Division I right away. I just started finding out now. When I'm 16, I'm just finding out what these national tournaments are. I have 2 years to get recruited. I'm like, I'm not gonna get recruited to the schools I want to go to. I want to go to Iowa, Nebraska, right? Rutgers was my last choice at the time, right? But I want to go to Arizona State, Oklahoma State. I want to go to these legendary schools, and I'm like, the only way I'm gonna do that is if I go to junior college. And I had people in my life who went to junior college at Iowa Central and were successful. So by the time I was 15, 16, and my scope widened, I was like, the only way to get to where I want is if I have an extra 2 years. So
Yeah.
I kind of gave up in high school. I was like, you know what, I don't need to go to class. I don't need to do this. I could just graduate and then go to junior college. I'm gonna get a full scholarship there. So though that was a limiting mindset, it kind of helped me deal with everything, and be able to get by and not be upset with certain issues that were going on in my life. So I decided to go to Iowa Central, and with Luke Moffitt, who is a Big Ten champion, who's probably changed my life from a coaching aspect more than anyone. So that's why I decided to go there.
So Iowa Central And so like what kind of stuff did you learn about yourself when you were in those 2 years where you were in high school and then going into those other 2 years in junior college? Like what was there any like aha moments that you had where you were just like, this is what I need to do to get to the next level?
Yeah, so I mean, I was nuts, man. The day before, the week I was leaving for Iowa, I had a big realization. I had this girlfriend, and I was, in love with this girl apparently, and I beat this kid up at a party, and knocked him out. Right? This kid was on the ground, like cold sleeping, and I went to get back in the car, and the kid didn't get up. And this is maybe 2-3 days before I left for school. And then I get back out of the car, I'm like, oh my God, like don't tell me something, don't tell me like I'm about to go to jail for the rest of my life and ruin my opportunity to do something special when I'm just about to make this big change, And I think that was a big change for me because now I learned that, this isn't the Wild Wild West. We live in a civilized society now, and that kind of gave me a little bit of an epiphany. It didn't correlate. I wasn't able to apply everything that I learned from that right away. But just experiences like that, I started to get over that hump. I started to get over that inside aggression, and then applying that in a better way. And then I got to junior college. I wrestled through the year. I wrestled 141, went up to 149. A week before nationals, I went up to 57. I weighed 152 pounds, soaking wet. I ended up making it to the national finals. I lost the national finals in a close bout. I should have won it, man. I'm still upset that I didn't.
I feel you there.
So that happened, and I look back at my coach, and I'm like, you were right. This was my first epiphany. I was like, you were right. But if I would have just listened to you, I probably would have won this bout. And I probably would have got all the offers the first year. Now Division I schools are starting to notice me. Because I'm wrestling dudes like Nick Dardanes at the Open. I'm wrestling, Joey LaValle, who I wrestled this weekend at the Open. He beat me in overtime. While I was a freshman in junior college, he's at Missouri Division I.
Yeah.
Never beat me again after that. But now I'm starting to get noticed, and I'm like, man, I could actually do this. So I think I was able to take direction better. That's something big that he taught me, and being able to be mentored. Because I although my parents are great, and they have done everything in their will for me. I am big in self-knowledge, and I taught myself a lot of things. I didn't live with them from the time I was 16 to the time I was 19, and now I'm at college. So I was very self-taught and not very I don't want to say coachable, but not very willing to listen to people.
You had to experience. You had to learn stuff on your own terms.
I had to learn stuff on my own terms, and I still do, and I think that's the best way to learn. But now I'm learning to learn from others' experience. So after that had happened, I said, you know what, I gotta make a change. Boom, made a big change. And then I had another experience where I learned that you can't control other people. The only thing that you can control is yourself. And I think that's where a lot of my angst stems from. A lot of my success also stems from that. But I learned that control what you can control. Control your emotions. You can't tell someone to do this, you can't tell someone to do that. The only person you can tell to do something is yourself. And I think that's where I've seen the biggest growth in my life, because I then forgave everyone who did anything wrong to me. I was like, now I see things from a different perspective, from their lens. And I didn't have that inside me anymore, and that's when I made my biggest gain. And I was able to just let everything go.
That locus of control is huge. I mean, once you learn that and you're like not like, one, because you'll tell someone to do something and they don't do it, you take it personally. Right. And then you're like, damn, why didn't you just do that? I told you to do that. But it's so much bigger than that. It's like,
correct.
When you're making the decisions and you know that you messed up because of something that you did.
Especially when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Who do you have control over when you're a kid? You know what I mean? You're not paying no one. You're not a coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're not nothing yet. And I always thought I had a grandiose. I thought it was bigger than something, And I realized how small I was, and the speck that I was, and it gave me an ego check and an introspective perception to be able to say, you know what, I have to go create. Who am I trying to prove something to?
Yeah.
Myself. So
those are two huge lessons. Like the fight one, where you basically learn that learn your powers and that you're not, other people aren't invincible and that you can really do damage, things like that. And then learning the locus of control, that you have control over these situations, these circumstances, things like that. I mean, shoot, I didn't learn that until probably after NASCAR, and so that was probably about 25.
Right.
And when you learn it at second year in college, first year in college, that's huge.
Yep.
And then being able to apply it, which I'm still learning to this day, that's the hard part.
Man, knowledge is nothing without application.
Yeah.
It's a mere dream.
Mere dream. So then, did you finish up? You finished up 2 years at Iowa Central.
So I finished up 2 years at Iowa Central. I got my associate's degree. I was originally going to study psychology, but I don't really agree with the liberal way of teaching in college. I don't think the ROI in college is really that amazing. I don't believe in a college education unless you're going to be a doctor.
Yeah.
Unless you're going to be, an accountant or finance major where you need to learn all this stuff. Psychology and prescriptions, I just don't agree with it. So I went to school, I took some classes like that, and I was like, these teachers are telling me things that I don't agree with. They're telling me these clinical things that don't apply to human emotion or actual studies. It's based on big pharma. It's based on the DSM and these money grabbing things, and it's like I just lost my interest for it. So I went to Rutgers and got a labor studies degree, which is basically you do some negotiation, some contract, some employment law, but that's when I really dove into my self-education.
Okay. And how was your transition from the junior college to D1, big school?
As far as wrestling?
As far as wrestling, as far as a student athlete, as far as your well-being, like what did that look like?
So the big reason that I went to Rutgers was because, like I told you, I didn't live with my parents. I had a pretty bad relationship with my dad and a pretty bad relationship with my mom. And I feel like they saw me grow up. This locus of control that we talked about, they saw that change. So I was like, you know what? I'm getting recruited here to there. I want to go Big Ten. Rutgers is now in the Big Ten. Donnie Prizoff is now there, who is a great mentor of mine. Coach Goodell has been high on me since I was probably 16, before other people saw it, and he's the head coach. And I was like, and I want to mend this relationship with my parents. And not only that, I think decisions like that are huge, because I could have went somewhere to maybe a better school, like as far as wrestling, we were top 10. I could have went to a top 5 school, right? But at Rutgers, they have this energy. They have 10, 20, 30,000 people following me. They have the media. They have everything. They allowed me to grow my name. So it was more than wrestling. And I understood that transition from studying psychology, from studying these human interactions. So I realized that I'm going to get a bigger payoff by going to Division I and going to Rutgers in my home state and representing something bigger than myself. It was going to help my image.
Yeah.
So it's something that was definitely cool. And like I said, I went on a little bit of a tangent, but
I love it.
Living with my parents the first year, because I wanted to mend that relationship, was extremely fruitful. My mom, I didn't talk to my dad. I talked to him like a conversation like we're having. I didn't have that with him for maybe 3 years. So being able to just see him and be around him and neither of us have this angst was extremely helpful in my growth as a human, in my growth as far as the path and the trajectory that I want for myself. So I think I need to do that. And that's probably the biggest reason why I came to Rutgers, and that was the biggest transition. The wrestling stuff was easy. I knew I was going to be good no matter where I went. So.
Yeah. And then as a student and an athlete, I mean, did you overcome, like what kind of stuff did you have to overcome? Did you have any injuries, or were you just all healthy the whole time? Or?
So my junior year, I started off, I was like 11-0, and I lost to Edwin Cooper. I was ranked right away, and then I ended up by the NCAAs ranked maybe 9th or 8th in the NCAA. So I had like a good shot to All-American. I thought I was an All-American. I thought I was so good,
Yeah.
And really, there was still some holes in my game. I was wrestling Nick Bruschetta from VTech. He ended up taking third that year. I was beating him 5-3, I think, or 5-4 going into the third, and I posted on his head, and I completely tore my rotator cuff, my labrum. I injured it originally when I was a freshman in high school, and it always bothered me, but my shoulder never really slipped out, but it was always in the back of my head. So I think I was cutting a lot of weight. I was 170. I weigh the same now that I did when I was a junior in college. So I was cutting a lot of weight, and when I posted on his head, my shoulder just slipped out, and I looked at my coaches and I told them, like, I can't move my arm, and they were like, wrestle through it, and I mean, we're in the Big Ten. I'm like, I have Donnie Prince-Off in my corner. I was able to wrestle through it. I ended up losing the match 8-7, but I was able to wrestle through it. And I was like, you know what, man? Like, this is what you have to do to be an All-American, and I wasn't able to do it. So I take the ultimate blame on myself. But the next day, I go to sleep. I wake up. I wrestle your buddy Dylan Cottrell the next round, and I wake up in the morning and I can't lift my arm, past my side. And I'm like, oh my, like, this is my dream to become an All-American. I want to be a 4-time All-American. I did it twice in junior college, and I want to do it twice Division I. And I couldn't move my arm. And
Was this your first year?
This is my first year.
Oh, okay.
So I was like, you know what, man, I'm going to do it. I'm going to wrestle anyway. And I'm wrestling this kid, getting in on his legs and funking out, and I can't finish because I can't lift my arm at all. So he ended up beating me. That was the end of my tournament. And then it was pretty much 6 to 8 months of recovery.
Surgery or no surgery?
No surgery yet.
Yeah.
I started wrestling again, and it would slip out, and it kept getting worse. And then now it's my senior year in college. I get invited to go to the NWCA All-Star Classic, and I wrestle Joey Lavelli, who beat me my freshman year in junior college, or my sophomore year in junior college, and he actually took second at the NCAAs this year, and my arm's busted still, and they ended up beating him. But my shoulder slipped out like 6 to 7 times.
Wow.
So I go to a family doctor, Dr. Dehan, shout out, best doctor in the game. I went out to him and got an MRI again, got everything done, and he was like, man, it's torn pretty bad, and it's torn worse than it was before. We need to get you into surgery. And when he said that, I didn't even think about it. I applied for my medical red shirt and got surgery right away. And the recovery was pretty hard. 4 months in, I didn't know if I was ever going to be able to wrestle again because I couldn't lift my arm past, I would say, about 90 degrees. You want to get into at least like 160. That's about where it's at now.
Yeah.
It's not even at 100%. But anyway, so I'm recovering, and I go through another phase. Another locus of control. Well, what can I do here? Am I ever going to be able to wrestle again? Am I going to get depressed? How am I going to handle this adversity? And I said, you know what, man, this is what you love to do. If you can do it, try your hardest, So I tried my hardest, and then USA announced that they're doing U23 World Team Trials. So it used to be the universities.
Yeah.
And then they stopped it around 2011 or 2010. There was no national tournament when FILA ended. UWW didn't host the university. So they announced the U23 World Team Trials. And I was like, oh man, this is like brand new. This is a new thing, And I was like, this is like perfect timing. The month that I'm allowed to come back is the month of the trials. And it's day before weigh-ins.
Oh, perfect.
So I'm a big boy, and I have to go 154. I'm like, dude, I wrestle these 154 pounders, like, I'm throwing them around. So I made a big weight cut, went to the trials, and ended up making my first world team. I wrestled Levine Mays, first round. He was an NCAA finalist. I wrestled Anthony Calico, 2-time All-American. And then I wrestled Tyler Berger. He lost to North this year in the finals.
Yeah.
2 out of 3, I wrestled him. And in the last bout, I could barely move my shoulder just because this was my first tournament, after 6 months of surgery.
Yeah. That's a crazy one to jump right into.
Yeah, but I was excited to do it.
Yeah.
So then that's how I made my first world team.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. I mean, I was a sports and exercise psychology major, and so I knew
exercise.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so I knew everything. I know everything that you were going through at that point when you had your surgery. I mean, I've had injuries, and just like being able to battle back from those, and kind of, I mean, like you said, the opportunities to get depressed, the opportunities to say like, why me, everything like that. That locus control. Like you start getting down on yourself. You're not you don't have the range of motion that you want. You know, you can't
get
practice. You lose your identity a little bit because now you're not wrestling. You haven't been on the mat. It's all serious stuff. And so for you to come back first tournament and win that, that's huge. That says a lot about your character and kind of everything that you've been through, and being able to bounce back like that.
Right.
Wow.
So a big thing that I predicate this to, I learned this from Dylan Palacio actually. That's my man. Shout out. Is that I didn't know this at the time, but now looking back on it, I start to realize it. Is that, like I told you, when I started wrestling at 10, right? It's because I loved it. I loved going in there, and I loved fighting, and I loved the sport. And that's what careers are built on. You know, there's two things that drive you: there's love and there's hate, right?
Mm-hmm.
And love for the sport builds careers. You know, hate against your opponent, against adversity, against naysayers, against whatever, against what you can't do, right? That builds something inside you, a fire. You know, that adds. Imagine there's some oil, right? And that's throwing oil onto the fire. You know, love is that deep wood. It's always gonna be there, and it's always gonna.
It's gonna burn. Everlasting.
Right, and that hate, you throw that oil on there, and it's fire, right? It's way stronger.
Mm-hmm.
So, being able to have control of that love for the sport, while hating something at the same time, is really what pushed me. You know, it was a multitude of the both.
Man, that's phenomenal. I love that. I mean, just the love and the hate. I mean, it's like, it was always like, you can't just love winning, you gotta hate losing.
Correct.
It's like, yeah, because I mean, it's almost inevitable that you're gonna lose, but it's like, how do you react when that
But
loss
to build
comes?
a career, you always have to have more love than you do hate, you know?
Yeah, because if you don't love what you're doing, it's just, if you don't have that internal kind of motivation, it's not it doesn't matter what comes from it.
Right.
You're not just gonna, that drive is gonna eventually stop.
Because you could win one tournament, you could win one huge match with hate. You could beat someone you never thought you could beat with hate, with anger, you know? But you can't beat that same person or string together a tournament of 5, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
That's with love.
What do you love most about the sport of wrestling?
I would say character development, along with willingness to learn, you know, willingness to let your ego go, willingness to fight. You have to have so much in order to wrestle.
Mm-hmm.
It's not a sport like any other. You know, I think it's the hardest sport in the world. You know, I trained some MMA, trained some jiu-jitsu, played football, played lacrosse. You know, wrestling is the true hardest sport in the world because you don't really do it for money. You know, you do it because you love it. So that's what I love about it. Is how it builds character inside you. Because I know when I transitioned to an entrepreneur, when I transitioned to a creative, when I transitioned to an MMA fighter, I already did the hardest shit in the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Now I have to do this for spoils. You know, I did the hardest thing in the world for nothing.
Mm-hmm.
Now I have to do something that's not as hard. I don't want to say not as hard, but I already faced so much adversity. I already learned so much. That what can be harder than that?
Yeah.
You know, I've learned so many lessons in my past 14 years of wrestling that whatever life hits me with, I'm ready to fucking go head on and battle it. So I think that's what I love most about the sport is what it taught me.
Yeah, that's what I tell everybody too. Like nowadays, or like, especially when I go to all these gyms, they're like, Roman, you're so awesome at it. I'm like, I can do anything on a full belly, hydrated.
Right.
And none of this stuff is that hard. Like it's like compared to what we've been through, compared to being the minnow around all the sharks, and you got 4 people fresh beating on you in the middle of a practice in a room that's 100 degrees. Like it's not, nothing compares to that stuff, you know?
Yep, I agree.
And so what do you hate most about the sport? What's that hate that drives you?
The hate that drives me is different than what I hate about sport.
Yeah, okay, so what's the hate that drives you? Because there's always hate. I mean,
Yeah,
I hated cutting weight about that. That was the one thing I hated about the sport, but that's not the hate that drives you. You know?
Correct, yeah, no. I think that the hate that drives me would be like, I don't know. I honestly don't. It's different things at different times.
Yeah.
You know, sometimes someone will say something to you that you can't do something. someone will doubt you.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes people don't recognize your value. Sometimes someone disrespects you, right? And wrestling is a sport. That's all it is. It's a game, right?
Yeah.
It's not real life. You know, it's just a part of real life. It's just a part of an identity. And when people start to confuse that with the latter, that's what drives me the most, because I respect all my opponents, you know, and I respect all the fans, you know,
Mm-hmm.
I respect everyone. But as soon as you cross that line, that's in any way, that's what drives me the most, I would say.
Yeah.
Whether it be a fan, whether it be a competitor, whether it be his coach, whether it be my coach, whether it be a sponsor.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? If once you take it away from the great sport that it actually is when you bring it into real life, and that's when, you know, I'm a totally different person, and I take it very seriously.
Yeah.
You know, I take wrestling fun, sport, game, but when you bring real life and real consequences into it,
Yeah. When you take it off from that,
correct.
after you shake hands,
Yeah,
things like that.
that's when things change for me, and luckily a lot of times I'm able to channel that. If it gets distracted, I'm able to take that energy that I have outside the mat and then channel it back into myself, that locus of control,
Mm-hmm.
right? That's a great topic for us that we keep talking about.
Yeah.
But learning that locus of control, learning what I can control, and I'm still learning, you know? So that's a lot of what
Yeah.
drives me.
Especially because if you do have these people crossing the line, knowing that.
Because I'll knock any motherfucker out
Yeah.
at the end of the day, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? And these people don't understand that. And that's one thing. A fan will message you and say something like, yo, you suck. Floor wrestler will put something up. Oh, like, he'll get pinned, he sucks. It's like, man, you don't know what it's like to step in the cage. You don't know what it's like to step here. And if you were in front of my face, you wouldn't say any of this stuff.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I'm saying? So that's one thing that bothers me, is not being able to apply my true self in the form of wrestling.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes me tick a little bit.
That's nice that, I mean, because, yeah, there's people crossing the line all the time, but and not having to deal with any consequences with it, you know?
And you have to learn to use that as fuel.
Yeah, and not use it as not take it personally, basically, and not get
Correct.
demoralized, not be like, why are these people hating on me so much? What did I do to them? But looking at it and being like, I got these haters, I don't want to prove wrong.
Right.
Yeah, just shifting it.
Correct.
Perspective change, huge. So, what are some of the goals after you got fourth? What are some other goals that you have for wrestling?
So, you know, since I was a kid, my ultimate goal was to be an Olympic champion. I think I'm in the right spot to do that right now. Since I was a kid, I think I was in 7th, 8th grade, 6th grade. I used to tell people I was going to Blair Academy. I never talked to Coach Buxton one time. I never even visited Blair. But I knew, for some reason, when I was a kid, what I had to do was to be coached by Jeff Buxton. Since I was 12, 13 years old, you know, I've been wrestling for 3, 4, 5 years. I'm like, I have to be coached by Buxton. He's the best coach in the world. And it's crazy that it took me 14 years to finally get with him. And so it's super exciting, and I think I'm in a really good place at Lehigh. Those dudes like Pat Santoro, Coach Hughes, Brad, Zach Gray, Darian Cruz, Miriam Mason, Frank Corelli, they're just good dudes, and they want the best for you. And then you have Coach Buxton, who I believe is one of the best coaches in the world. So to get with him and be there, I could really think I could achieve whatever I want. It's more about when I'm going to achieve it.
Yeah. I like that you spoke into existence.
I didn't even think about how am I 24 now? It's kind of crazy, and I'm with Coach Buxton, and I've had growth with him in wrestling, as far as wrestling, and in 6 months we've been training together, more than I've had in my whole life. You know, I've had these huge big jumps, but you know, from when I was a kid to when I was a sophomore in high school. Okay, that's one jump. When I was a sophomore in high school to when I was in junior college, that's one jump. Junior college Division 1, that's one jump. But these are over years.
Yeah.
I'm with Buxton for 6 months, and I see the same results that I've seen over my first one of 8 years, my next one of 2 years, my next one of 3 years. Now I'm with 6 months, and I'm seeing that same time jump.
Yeah.
You know, it's just absurd. You know, and I'm big into 10xing. That's what I want to do 10x. You know, before I do something, before I could win the Olympics, I have to 10x myself. You know, am I good enough to do it right now? You know, sure, maybe, but not really until I 10x. And then once I get there, you know, I won't do it again.
Yeah. That's like when I was a freshman in high school, before I even won states, Kevin Dresser did a camp at my high school, and I shook his hand and was like, "My name's Roman. I'll be wrestling for you in 4 years." And then he recruited me. And I went to Virginia Tech for a year. It only lasted for a year, redshirt year. I was a knucklehead, but it's crazy when you put stuff out there and you say it that energy doesn't disappear.
Yeah. So I'm here with my boy Drasimos, and he's my business partner, my best friend, and ever since like we connected, we literally just talk about things and they start to come into existence. And I've always believed in the law of attraction. My mom, when I was a kid, we used to drive. She used to put in The Secret. We used to go to Jack Canfield seminars.
I read The Secret at like 12.
Soup for the Soul, right? That's the same. I can barely read still, but I listen to audio.
Yeah.
I can read. I just have trouble comprehending it, but I listen to a lot of audio. So we were doing that, and being able to speak things into existence is awesome. And sometimes I have a thought in my head, right? Just like I said with the Jeff Buxton thing.
Mm-hmm.
I have a thought in my head, and I have no way of making it come true. I have no resources to do it at that moment. But I know I want it so bad that I tell other people about it.
Yeah.
And I don't feel like I'm lying. You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. I know what I'm gonna do, and I know what's gonna happen. So like, for example, you know, I wanted to go down to American Top Team for a camp, right? And I'm like, yeah, I'm going down to American Top Team. I'm going to American Top Team soon. I never put a date on it because I have no idea what date, because I never talked to any of those guys. You know what I'm saying? Mm. 3 months later, they call my phone, hey, can you come out for Kobe Covington's camp? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I know these things are going to happen, because if they don't reach out to me, I'm reaching out to them. You know, and I'm hustling, and I'm going to get what I want when the time is right. So I put these thoughts in my mind, and then I stay patient, and they happen.
Yeah. It truly is wild. I mean, the more you say it, and if you write it down, the likelihood of it actually coming true is like, there's some statistic out there.
It's crazy.
I don't know what it is, but
the only thing is that I don't like to do is make it outcome driven with the law of attraction. So I believe in effort. The outcome is largely based on you, but it's, you know, also based on some woo shit.
Yeah.
God and all that stuff. So I try not to play with the outcome.
Yeah.
Even though I would have a desired outcome, I try not to attach myself to it too much. I try to shrink the scope.
Yeah.
You know, I have this big scope like we're talking about,
mm-hmm.
and then I reshrink it into the moment.
Yeah. Love that. And so your next pursuit after wrestling is MMA. Tell us about what's kind of driven you and inspired you to want to go down that path.
Man, so I always knew I was going to be a fighter since I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went to high school where Frank Yeager went to high school, world champion. I seen him. He might have been my first person I knew that was a world champion, UFC fighter or fighter that was good. Now, there's not many world champions, but first fighter that I knew that was like a stud, that came from where I'm from. Right, I always been a big fan of Chuck Liddell, Tito Ortiz, those guys. But I seen Frankie do it, and I was like, I swear I go to high school. He's from my high school. He's a guy that walks around town, same time as me.
Yeah. You
know. And then I was like, yeah, I like fighting, and I've always liked fighting. Like I said, I always was fighting at the park, at the street. Not really so much in school, but just always getting into fights, you know. Mm-hmm. So I kind of always knew I wanted to do it, and I kind of always loved it. You know, I didn't really like I don't really like to fight to hurt people. I like to fight to show my dominance. You know, more like a sport. Yeah. You know, that I love the sport aspect of it. Like, you don't like me, I don't like you. We can figure it out and then be cool. Yeah. You know, and I think at the end of the day, we're all freaking primates. You know, we're animals.
Oh, it's in our nature.
Correct.
Fight or flight.
Exactly. Yeah. So I think I love that hierarchy of who is the most dominant man. You know, that's That's a big thing. So I've always had that. And then when I went to Iowa Central, I look at the wall. John Jones, world champion. Cain Velasquez, world champion. Colby Covington, interim belt world champion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Carrington Banks. I see these dudes, world champions, UFC fighters. Oh, wait, I went to the same high school as Frankie Edgar. I went to the same colleges. 3 UFC champions. I'm like, man, I think maybe this is my path. You know what I mean? I'm so good at wrestling, and my wrestling transfers over so well to MMA because I have such an explosive style. It's not so much grabby, technique-y, you know what I mean? I have such an explosive style that's what translates over. You're seeing guys like Johnny Hendricks, George St. Pierre that have the same style of wrestling as me, being world champions. So I kind of always knew in the back of my mind that that's what I wanted to do eventually.
Have you done any training specific, like, or just like boxing, kickboxing, anything like that, and then?
Yeah, so I started off jiu-jitsu at Dante Rivera, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's a great guy. He's my man. He does a lot for me, and I started off with him. He taught me a lot, and then I go to Renzo Gracie Academy in New York City now with Gordon Ryan, Gary Tonin, John Donaher, Nikki Ryan, Ethan Creliston, the best jiu-jitsu players in the world. Gordon Ryan, they call him the king because he's the king of jiu-jitsu. John Donaher is a freaking wizard. He's the smartest man in jiu-jitsu, and these guys are 50 minutes from me, you know. So being able to train with them has not only helped me in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, it's helped me in wrestling. It helped me articulate, and being able to teach technique differently, you know, and just learning from those guys has been amazing. So I'm training with them, and I plan on training with them, you know, a little bit more than part-time. And I've been boxing, you know, I've been down to American Top Team. I work with Steve Mako. I've been down to AKA. I think that's going to be my new home when I do start fighting. With Javier Mendez, Rosando Sanchez, my buddies, Kyle Crutchmer, Deron Wynn in the UFC out there, you know, and Bellator. And then you got Ron Kessler out there, just like, it's the best team in the world. These opportunities are presenting themselves to me. So yeah, I've been training, but it's been part-time.
Yeah, still focused on the wrestling.
Still focused on the wrestling, yeah.
So what do you think your kind of biggest challenges will be kind of transitioning to the MMA?
I would say pace, choosing to monetize or not. You know, people might not really get that, but being a personal brand, that's something that like I'm super into is marketing and entrepreneurship and content and just doing it the right way. Is big for me, and the fight is gonna take care of itself. You know, I know I'm gonna beat some people's asses, but you know, I see these guys like Crutchmer, like Deron Wynn, who similar wrestling ability to me, similar careers to me. They fight for 1 year, 2 years. They're in the UFC.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They're not training for 5 years and have 5 years of experience, 20 fights, 10 amateur fights, 10 pro fights. Now we're in the UFC. Now we start from the bottom of the UFC and have 10 fights to build up to a title fight. You're going to see these guys have 3 fights and then be top 10 because they bring more to the table than an average UFC fighter. You know, these guys are wrestlers. They're personalities. They're known outside of the fighting community. You know, their skill acquisition is, like I said, wrestling's harder. Their skill acquisition is 10x faster than anyone else off the street. You know, they're just a different breed. So doing it the right way is probably going to be the most difficult but easiest at the same time. You know, it just has to be done right. And you know, I'm in contact with Dwayne Zinkin Sports Management, and Bob Cook and Javier Mendez, like I said, at AKA, and they did DC, Luke Rockhold, Chuck Liddell. You know, they've curtailed these guys' careers correctly. So I have a phone meeting with him this week, and I'm pretty sure he's gonna do right by me. You know, he's a good dude. So I'm pretty excited.
That's important that branding, building your brand and things like that. Because I mean, that's kind of how I feel like that's how you make the transition quicker.
Yeah.
Because people know your name, they want to see you fight in bigger stages, things like that.
And individual content creators are winning right now.
Yeah.
You know, you see these big media companies, they're not getting deals anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like, we got this, right? We got Rain. They're not sending this to Vice, right? They're sending this to a guy like you, who's a new podcaster, because now they can go closer to the consumer. They don't have to deal with corporate. You know, so personal branding is huge, and individual content creators are the future. And not only do I want to be, you know, a UFC fighter, I want to be more than a fighter.
Yeah.
You know, that's just not, being a fighter doesn't justify who I am.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So that's part of the game.
Yeah, I'm a renaissance man.
Correct.
I want to be a man of many feats. Yep, I agree with that. Yeah, best of luck out there, man. I'll definitely be watching you out there. Smash some heads. You kind of got a little Mike Perry look to you too.
Oh no, hell no!
Just
he did not just say that. He did not just say like Mike Perry.
Slight look, no tap on the face though. But
I'm a little bit more scary than that motherfucker.
Hey, he's a scary dude too, but I wouldn't want to catch either of y'all. You know, I'll tell you that. So let's talk a little bit about your lifestyle. Like, how is like the wrestling community and because you transitioned a couple different times. Like, how has they overall affected your well-being as a person?
As far as,
I mean, just physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, anything like that.
I think.
Just like the people and not like.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, so like I said, the wrestling community has brought me to my greatest mentors. First, Warren Reed. Next, Luke Moffett. Next, Donnie Prinslove. Next, Jeff Buxton. And Damian Logan and Vinny Santinello. So I mean, like, I've had 6 mentors that I can call when I need something. Just that coached me. It's like I have these resources just from wrestling. You know what I mean? Aside from wrestling.
Yeah.
You know, I have these people that I can call on and help me with wrestling, help me without wrestling, write me letters of rec, vouch for me, you know, save me, whatever I need. I can call these people and they got my back. And I can speak to them about issues that I'm having, adversity that I'm facing, that these men, national champions, all Americans, world team members, you know, family men, chief of, like, you know, police officers. It's like I can have all these different perspectives and get an introspect from a police officer, from a world bronze medalist, national champion, you know what I'm saying, from an entrepreneur, from a high school teacher.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? From a guy who made it from junior college from a similar story as me. You know, I could get all this stuff. And not only that, but the Rutgers alumni base, you know, has been huge for me. Tim Hennessy down here, he's a huge mentor for me, introduced me to Voss, another big mentor for me. So Ryan and Diane, they were donated my scholarship when I was at Rutgers. They still reach out to me. If they don't reach out to me twice a month, it's a weird month.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If I don't talk to Tim and Voss at least once a month, it's a weird month. So, and he's head of global sales. He's the vice president of High Point Solutions. I can pick his brain, all the stuff that he's been through. You know, that's what the community has done for me. And I'm starting to notice that I'm giving that to kids that are younger than me now. So it's bilateral, you know, these guys, me, younger generation. It's all about serving others at the end of the day.
Yep, I agree. That's like the community I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build a community because, like, when I got out of NASCAR, community was gone. And I was like, all right, well, what do I do now? And then I found out community was just disguised as teammates. For me, was with wrestling. Yeah. And then when I got out, I was like, what is that word I'm missing? A team? Community. Well, now I'm trying to build that out here.
The only thing that sucks is you can't choose your teammates all the time.
Can't choose your teammates.
You can choose your community. You know, you build your own little community.
You sure can. If you knew Richie, you would know what? Could be anything.
You know I'm a fucking savage. You know I'm a straight shooter. I'm a killer.
Yeah. Savage. How long have you been Savage?
So my original
when did that come about?
My original nickname was Richie Fontana. So I created that one for myself. I used to love Scarface. So, you know, Tony Montana.
Mm-hmm.
So it was like Richie fucking Montana. Richie Fontana, that was my original Instagram name. And no one knew what it meant. And I never really, I think this is the first time I articulated that, right? But I was like, you know, I gotta change that. You know, that's cool, I like it, but different image. So I changed it to just Richie Lewis, okay? And then I had one of my first business partners, I had a clothing company, Anything But Average, ABA, with a great fashion designer, Richie Smalls. He was my partner for a little bit, and he changed his name to 732 Savage we had the same name, Richie. Mm-hmm. But he changed his name to 732 Savage on his Instagram. And then I'm like, yo, Richie Savage, like that embodies me. So he gave me this idea without even knowing it. You know, he changed his screen name probably 3 days later. And a month later, I'm like, Richie Savage. I'm like, everyone thinks my real name is Richie Fontana. My name's Richie Lewis. So people who didn't know me, who followed me on Instagram, would be like, oh, Richie Fontana. I'm like, yo, my name's Richie Lewis. And like, people wouldn't know that. Yeah. You know what I mean? But when you say Richie Savage, no one's gonna think of it. You know, people are less likely to think your last name Savage, and it's more like who I embody. So I was like, you know, screw it, I'm changing my name, Richie _Savage. And I did that probably when I was like 16, 17, and wow, it's stuck ever since. Yeah. Richie Savage. I've been roaming the empire for a long time. Yep. Yeah. No one's gonna confuse that as your last name. Yeah, no one's gonna confuse that as a last name. What is one habit that you do that you would recommend someone else to do to get more out of their day, their week, their year, their life? Do you want one thing or a couple? Whatever comes to mind. Hey, shoot them out. I go out in the sun and I go out in the grass. I go. There's a park right by my house. I live in a city, but there's a beautiful park right next to my house. I'll go walk to the park with no shoes, no shirt, just my Reebok shorts. Sure, I'll show you my park out here too. Yeah. No undies. And I just go lay in the grass. There's people all around me, walking around and thinking I'm a fucking weirdo, and I'm just like loving it. Soaking up vitamin D, soaking up the electrons from the ground, and being in touch with nature. So we, like I said, we're primates, and I'm very primal. Earthing. Yeah. Very like to be in touch with the earth. Yeah. Brings me closer to myself. Yeah, I'm the weird guy at the park right here. Yeah. In the city. So, I love it. Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Anything else? No, man. Thanks for having me. Or I thought you meant I thought you had something else. No, we got time. Okay. So I always ask this question. I always think that I could take a page out of anyone's book and kind of add it to my book, like learn a lesson from everyone. And so if you could take a page out of your book and kind of give it to the world, what would that page say about you? Man, I would just say, as cliche as this sounds, like just never give up. You're exactly where you're supposed to be on your journey. Mm-hmm. You know, I have people who reach out to me who need help all the time, who I used to and still look up to, who better than me at sport, who are worse than me at sport, who are at different stages in their lives, you know. Sometimes they could be 40, 50, and they call me and talk to me and ask me for advice, and I asked them for advice my whole life. It's about where you are in your life right now. That's the best part of your journey, is right now. And once you realize that, you know, Tim actually sent me something today. It's very similar to that, so let me grab my phone and read it for you. He said, my tip of the day: every day is a holiday, every walk is a parade, every meal is a feast. Ooh. So those are all positive imagery, but you could also apply that to the negative, because in the negative experiences is where you're gonna have initial negative experiences where you're gonna have the most growth from. So just be happy with your journey. It all means something, and it's all gonna get you closer spiritually. It's gonna get you closer to God every day. And I don't mean to get into religion. I don't mean to get into God, but not God as far as religion based. God as far as your inner peace. God, your God that's inside of you. Mm-hmm. You know, you are your own controller of your reality. You are your own God, essentially. God is inside you, right? So never be discouraged from that. and never give up. Because inside you there's that fire, there's that passion, there's God inside you. So you have to express yourself onto this reality until you reach it. So
that's a hell of a page, I'll tell you that. I should say heaven of a page, honestly.
Whatever you want to call it.
Yeah. And so where can people find you on social media?
So Richie_Savage, basically on everything. Instagram. Is that my YouTube, Jerry?
I think so.
Yeah, Richie_Savage on YouTube, I believe. If not, just search Richie Lewis series #1, and then you'll find me on Twitter, Lewis Richie, just my name backwards.
Mm-hmm.
And those are pretty much the only 3 platforms that I'm active on right now.
Awesome. And do you have any last words for the listeners?
Be you, be yourself, be limitless. And shout out to my clothing company, April Fitness. Go check that out.
Love it. Hey, I appreciate you having me on.
Thanks, man.
Coming on.